first Silicon Valley Leaders Symposium of the semester. We're really excited to have Hina Ashar here. She is a graduate of SVLS. It's always great to have speakers come back. And she will be talking about generative AI, which I know is super hot topic right now. Before she begins, I'd like to just talk a little bit about Hina. So she holds a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering and then a Master's in Computer Engineering, which she got here at San Jose. She started her career in software development, and she spent 9 years at ArcSight, which was acquired by HP, in increasingly responsible roles, culminating as a director of software development. And then she moved on to some other important security roles. The first as VP of Engineering and Data Science at E8 Security, which then was acquired by VMware. And then the second as Senior Director of Engineering and Data Science at Proofpoint, which is an enterprise security company known for spam detection and email security. She's also served as Senior Director of Engineering at Split, and then VP of Engineering AI at Disco, which is a company which is focused on discovery of documents for the legal industry, which is one of the first earliest uses of AI that made sense to me. When you have to try to find information from vast amounts of that text. As an entrepreneur at heart, she has played a key role in 2 cybersecurity startups, both of which were acquired for over $1.5 billion, including IPO. In her last role, she served as Vice President of Engineering at a tech company, and then her role specifically at Disco was research, development, and deployment, and then managing teams of machine learning researchers and other AI developers and software engineers. So a lot of people in engineering. And she's currently an advisor for early stage tech startups. So let's welcome Hina. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for the intro. And I'm especially excited to be here today because I graduated nearly 28 years ago from this campus. And interestingly enough, one of my professors is still working here, Daniel Harvey. We did a lot of projects. So today, because we are going through a quick intro we already did, as Sharon mentioned, I've been working in the Valley for almost 28 years. Today, because we are going through a major shift and transition due to generative AI, and I was fortunate to be to have the front row seat to see the technology build and evolve in Silicon Valley. I was basically here at this campus in 1995, 96, graduated in 97. So think about those times. And so in today's talk, I want to connect these 2 moments because with the birth of internet in the last 20, 25 years, how we evolved, what kind of, it not only changed how we build software, it also impacted the society and how we live and operate today. So right now, with such a big magnitude of shift on the generative AI side, I think it's a time for us to connect these 2 moments because you're the next generation for taking it to the next level. My generation and I, what we have done in the last 25 years, this is what you have. But now this role is going to be given to you. You're going to take this to the next level. So that's what I'm going to talk about in today's talk. In terms of topics, by the way, I prepared it in work. So we're going to talk about a little bit of the history of how we got here and how the rise of GenAI is going to change. In terms of GenAI, it's only 3 years old, but there is so much happening in the industry and what you should expect, because you are the generation who is now at the same intersection where I was 25, 30 years ago. So it's very important for us to go back and understand how we got here and what are our responsibilities going forward. So we're going to talk about that. So looking back, so think about, and because your generation and probably your parents, people like my generation, when we started off, think about those times. If we had to, rent a movie, we would go to Blockbuster. If we had to do shopping, we would really go and do the grocery. It was a different society and a different system. Back in 1995, when the internet was and the IPO of Netscape happened, this was a huge thing for the tech industry. This basically built Silicon Valley. And I graduated in December 1997, and I was so fortunate that I got the offer from the coolest company of its time, Netscape, back then. And it was an amazing time because the entire industry's focus was to build the web, to build products that will take us to the next level. Now things were moving fast. And at that time when you're moving so fast, sometimes it's hard to see. And a lot of funding happened. It happened so fast, and it was so much funding that it went wrong. So in the year 2000, we had a bubble bust. How many of you know about the dot-com bubble bust? So that's important too, because this is an important lesson in the tech industry and history in our era. Now when that happened in the year 2000, basically market took the correction, stock market crashed. Literally 101 was empty. I could drive straight home. It was really bad. A lot of people lost their jobs. So market had a correction, but at the same time, a lot of things were happening. New programming languages, Java, when actually Java came in. I was one of the first students here at San Jose State. We were the first session to take the Java classes, and I wrote the assembler in Java. I remember the next room we had the compiler classes in C++. So this was a very different time, and we were young, and we were looking for things, and all of these things you see, the companies, some of the names. This was a time when we were building the J2E applications and coming up with that. The first web server, I was with the Netscape team who actually built the very first application server and web server where we hosted E-Trade, Bank of America. First time going live back in 90s. So think about those times. And as the internet was progressing and technology was building, there was a parallel effort of how to make it secure. Then there was a lot of security companies that came into the picture. So we kept going on and on. The first 10 years were building the foundation, and then we got to a point where there was more of a social media and connecting people. The first 10 years were more about, okay, building the web, building the understanding of where we're gonna host, how we're gonna secure it. And then came a very different era. I mean, think about finding your friends online. When YouTube came, watching videos, and people are actually earn money through this. Think about LinkedIn. It's not a professional, just a professional network. It's a whole learning system around it. You and your colleagues and companies and discovering new businesses and new opportunities. Look at Amazon. I mean, it made us lazy. We are not going to make a trip to the store, and we're going to be just ordering everything online. So there's a good side of the technology, right? And we're going to talk about the bad side of technology as well. But think about how Uber, Airbnb, and a lot of other things change the way we used to operate. There is an impact on the society. So if you look at the 20, 25 years, for somebody like me, who started her career at a time when these things were not available, for us it was, when I look back, so when you will, 20 years from now, you will look back today and remember this day, then you will realize how much shift has happened. And you're going to play a key role in that establishment and progression. Rise of GenAI. So up till like November 2022, we were using ML in our software products. We were doing predictions, there was NLP, and a lot of companies were combining rule-based engines and combining ML to do predictions and build as much as we can, both on enterprise, finance, fintech, or security aspect, different verticals, health. So this was going on. But the turning point was November 2022, when OpenAI basically released ChatGPT. And it was mind-blowing. Because then we suddenly realized that opportunities are endless. And then it moved so fast. So what I recall, when Internet of Work, the first 3 years for because we were still building the foundation. But the last 3 years, with the generative AI, is massive. Why? Because we already have a foundation now. Back then we had no foundation. We were still building. So think about the progression of generative AI is going to be much faster than the progression we have seen in the last 20 years in the technical industry. So it's very important that within the last 3 years that we started with prompts and communicating with an LLM, and then in 2024 there are already multi-models, and now we are talking about agentic AI and orchestration, and going and building intelligent AI systems. So it's already moving fast. We already see that there are companies who are building a lot of on the robotic side, and there are creative side of things where you can create images. Things are moving. I love to do interior design, and I always imagine things in my head like, oh, I want to see this. And I started using some of these. I use Midjourney, and I was looking at it, and it's like mind-blowing that how it takes the imagination you have in turn and shows that immediately on a piece of UI, and you're like, my God, this is powerful. So with this, we are already progressing. New businesses are taking place. It's not fully baked. A lot of these technologies are still relatively new, but they are gonna get more mature as we're gonna work through and test it. Now, how this impacts? So we used to build software. In the last 25 years, and even like in the last recent years, I have delivered 6 major the version 1 products in major enterprises and deployed in production. And there is pretty much the same way of building software, that we go upfront, define business logic upfront, and then we know as humans that how we want to see the workflow. This is the input, this is the output. We do the system design. We have a set of engineering or consist of the core engineers, data scientists. There is a UI UX side of things. There are DevOps. We deploy in cloud. We maintain that production. This is the formula that we have been following for the last 25 years. Every company was building it. If I have to go from one company to another company and take a leadership role, I didn't find anything. Challenges were within the software, that how we evolve. But this is how we have been doing. But is it going to stay the same? With generative AI, how it's going to change? It's going to change significantly. We are entering a new paradigm. We are no longer going to make determination that how this is the input, this is the output. It's going to be more like a life. It's more going to be conversation. It's more automations, what we call agents. So systems are going to reason. It's more like a human interaction. So it's very different than you have a fixed output that you anticipate in a core software development. Like when like 75% of products today deployed in production are still on this, because they have millions of users and customers. So think about how long it's going to take them to move to that, right? So companies are already investing. They want engineers with the degrees of GenAI or AI combination, but also knowing the software, that you can take this from there. What we used to do, a very simple thing, that, as I mentioned, rule-based. If this, do that. But now, we're going to be creative. We're going to have models involved. We're going to have agents involved. We need to do some human oversight in it, right? So it's going to fundamentally change everything. So this is the transition we are going through. It's a big transformation for the tech industry and for Silicon Valley. It's like somebody pushed the button restart. That's what's happening right now. So it's very powerful moment, and I think it's very critical to do things right. So let's take an example. You're already studying GenAI. You already know this. So if I I go to, I don't know if Travelocity and Expedia, they have changed their UI or not with GenAI, but this is what it is. That if I'm flying, I have to go and put the date, and I need to say, okay, this is what these are my dates, this is where I want to go. And then what happens? Okay, I want to go to London. I want to have a vacation. I need a hotel. And it brings the result back. And literally, I go back in each hotel and look at the minute. Does it have a hair dryer? Okay. Does it have a spa? No. Where is it located? So there's a lot of human work involved. So think about we go to this side. And I just put it there. Hey, on a sunny day, I want to fly, make sure there is no rain, but find a hotel that has a spa. And it will bring the answers back. Of course, it might take few iterations for me to go back and reason with it to find what I'm looking for. But it is a much different user experience. It is, and it's still just a beginning of it, right? We already feel that when we are using these systems today, it's mind-blowing, right? Imagine what they're gonna look like 10 years from now. How smart they are going to, right? Sometimes I feel they are reading my mind. I kind of like, the responses come back and it's like, it knows what she's gonna ask next, right? So isn't that mind-blowing? So think about the power of this entire shift. It's really powerful. So this is where we're heading, right? We are heading to orchestration of intelligence. What is orchestration of intelligence? Right? So as I described earlier, that we were building these predefined systems under certain parameters, inputs and outputs, right? And we are now going through a system of intelligence because these systems can reason with it. And so I used to hire software engineers, principal engineers, staff engineers. In some companies they used for software architects. And their job was to do system design. Okay, you guys are interviewing. You know, even for a VP of engineering, when I used to go, they would throw a system design on me. Like, okay, design Uber, or design this, or design that. So we used to do system design, right? But now that's going to change because the orchestration of intelligence is a different type of a system design because we're designing an AI system. That will involve LLMs, that will involve agents, and then basically all the tools, all the deployments are going to happen, and how the flow of information. So there is a conductor, orchestrator, that's driving all the flow. So in the example that I gave for travel website, so there will be an orchestration where one agent is bringing the weather, because I told it that I want to be flying on a sunny day. There will be another agent that, or she needs a hotel with a spa. So there are agentic AI, there are separate agents running and doing their job. And then there is LLM sitting there. And all of that is a system of intelligence. Another example can be that AI, there is a lot of fear that our human role is getting eliminated as a result of AI. So looking back, when we even moved from the software from one technology to new technology, things evolved. Technology gets outdated really fast. But right now with generative AI, it's such a massive drop on the industry. Of course, we are seeing a lot of shift, restructuring the companies are doing because they feel what is needed. But human is not getting eliminated. You do need a human plus AI collaboration. Why? Because there are, for example, I do a agent provide me a medical result. And if the doctor is getting it brings the things back to you. Doctor has to review it before he can summarize and validate. Otherwise, this can go in very wrong direction. So human is not eliminated. It's a human in the loop will stay. Our roles are going to change. But because right now it's such a massive shift, industry is still taking their time to learn and move to the next step. But it's not going to eliminate human. What are our challenges? So, I'm sure you are already studying about the challenges in terms of different type of things happening. Trust and explainability. We own this, right? So with GenAI, there is, even with AI, before GenAI, when we were building software stacks, we would go to customers and they would always ask, why should I trust this? I don't trust AI. Why should I do this? Because you can have major losses because of X, Y, Z. So when we are building these systems, it's extremely important for us to make sure we see what generative AI is doing, what kind of responses and output we are getting. The other bigger issue is environmental impact, because these servers require so much energy that is having a major impact on the environment. How, in the short term, nobody is talking so much. Of course, there are relevant things there. But in the long run, there needs to be consideration in setting up new rules about the environment and how this should be managed. Things are moving so fast that it's almost like a chaos, if you see that. But all of these things are critical. Governance and accountability. That I asked for a flight and it booked a wrong flight. And I'm standing at the airport thinking it's the right flight. So there needs to be some checks, and human is getting involved again, that there are going to be checks and balances where you see and test it so much that either it's foolproof, or it's humans are involved, or in some ways where we know that this is something we can trust. And are we gonna be there soon? No. This is gonna take time. And how do we get there? Are going to be more new tools to have, and there could be new laws, like even for security and privacy and all of that. This will create a lot of impact on the society. Going on the technology side of things, of course, when we are building new systems with GenAI, agent coordination, failure handling, we used to do this in software development, all error handling and stuff, but it's different for generative AI. Hallucination is another problem. It starts hallucinating, and it starts doing things. So you might have heard about the OpenClaw and Notebook. So it's more like a Reddit. You go and you see agents are talking to each other and saying humans are watching us. What an interesting view, right? It's a test. It's a test that has been put out there for all of us to see where we're going. It's understood, it's developed by a single engineer. It's not tested, and we know it's not tested. But it's just an experiment to put it out there to see where are we heading. What's going to happen with this? So, very interesting, but I think these are the things that are coming our way, and it's going to trigger a thought process that, here's an opportunity, but how do we do it right? Because if hallucinations and all of that stuff is going to be there, how do we control that? So important job for us. Observability of AI decisions, like human in the loop. We're going to continue doing that. Security and guardrails. So there is a lot of, there's actually security startups. It's flooding because they know we need to secure a lot of injections and getting the data out, and it's happening. And this is why a lot of companies are not claiming to be 100% in production system with GenAI full-scale system because they are waiting for the right security to have the wrappers around and they have the right products available. I was in one of the product, E8 Security, which was acquired by VMware. Right before E8 Security, I was at ArcSight for 9 years. And ArcSight was one of the very first security analytics product. And we would collect the data, and then we would, simple rule-based engines, and then we will basically put the data into analysis in terms of what could be a threat. And then there was a time when pretty much all the security wanted to bring machine learning, predictive. That, oh, rule-based is not enough. We want to have some prediction. And we moved to, and it was so hard for us to build that product for E8 Security, and similarly we had a lot of sibling competitors, and it was not easy because the data, and for us to test different type of threats, how do we know the behavior? We used to call it behavioral analytics, like, okay, how would you know the anomaly that, okay, if in an organization there are 300,000 employees, how do you know who could be doing something wrong? Well, we wrote a model where you will see that all of them are Google.com or E-Trade or this and that. But Hina, one day, she checked out a website, and that website has a low reputation score, so we had to integrate with the reputation scores. Okay, Hina was interacting with this website, and so Hina's score changed. And then Hina suddenly did an exfiltration where she took some HR files and she uploaded on that server. At that point, alert and notifications were sent that, oh, Hina became a threat. And from between score 1 to 10, she's at 10 because an exfiltration happened, right? So this is how we used to do that. With generative AI, security and guardrails are very different. So how it's about controlling the intelligence. The LLM, how it's going to behave, right? So it's a different beast. So security itself is going to look different. So now we're talking about, yes, agents are automation. We used to have automation. But now they are interacting with generated content. And that generation it's doing on its own sometimes. How do you control that? So there is a lot of effort going on that industry is focusing on security and guardrails, and this is why deployment of full-scale generative AI systems gonna be kind of in beta phase for a long time until they realize that yes, it is, and they feel confident that yes, it is okay to open. And it's also about the data, again, going back to what kind of LLMs, where the trainings are happening, how sensitive your data is. When I was at CS Disco, this is a legal tech company, and we were the very first one where my team and I built back in November 2022, when ChatGPT came up. In January, my team and I, we were like, we're gonna build the first legal chatbot before any other company even does that. And if you go on my LinkedIn, you will see there's a demo there from March in April 2023. And number one problem we had at that time, Google, Microsoft, everybody else was struggling. And they were like, send us your data. We will host. We had the most sensitive, millions of docs of legal documents. We cannot send it anywhere, right? And this is the number one problem. Okay, and at that time, this was a difficult time. We gave a proof of concept of the product, but then I was talking to Google team at that time, and this was the number one problem, that how do you segregate customer data, right? Because it's a critical thing. So now they started looking into that and providing you, of course, the security around your data, and then a lot of companies like, we're gonna bring our own model, we're gonna train on our own data, we're gonna host it ourselves. But then because the other problem that the cost of hosting is such a massive amount of data is sending, the API cost, that cost goes so high for companies. So there is a lot of challenges. We hear so much, it's overwhelming right now. My daughter, she's a software engineer and GenAI engineer, she keeps poking me, so what is the new article you read today? And I'm like, okay, Zanera, I've been reading as fast as I can, but this thing is moving so fast, it's hard for me to catch up. But that's why I was saying the speed right now is much faster than what we saw 30 years ago. So these are the challenges we are facing right now. What comes next? So we're gonna be moving, from tools to teammates, from co-pilots into agents. We are already doing. We are already in the world of agents. Multi-models by default, it's gonna actually get more common. Your phones, you already know that you can have your own LLMs on it, and by default, a lot of things will disappear. Right now, we actually see a lot of things. Oh, LLM and this and agent. In the 10 years from now, it will be invisible. And you're a critical generation because you are going through this transition right now. You will be able to compare. But think about a generation 25 years from now. This is what they're going to get. Whatever we're going to build now, we're going to give it in their hands. So this is a critical moment for us to think, because you are in that intersection. So why this makes it so important? Because we're going to build it right. So this is what's already happening. Trust is actually, I have put it here, which it should be actually on top. This is what generative AI is. Should I trust it? The first product that we built, the first thing we did was, and we were so new to this that when for the legal chatbot, when we said, okay, and we use the Enron data, they have millions of publicly available docs. It's a legal case, so we use that. And then the first thing was the customer said, how do I trust? The customer asked a question and it says, okay, did this case happen? Did this email go through? And in return, we generated not just the response, we generated the citations so that customer can trust. Right? Trust is a very critical thing. And think about it, goes back to our day-to-day. If everything is going to be generated and driven by this AI, how do we know and can tell it's right or wrong? And is that right and wrong will disappear at some point of time? Because we're going to be so much dependent on it, and it will become so difficult to differentiate, because we will become lazy just like we became lazy today. We are ordering things online, and think about 10 years from now, that I will just trust it. I have no choice but to trust it. But how do we reach that point? That's more critical. That how we are going to establish, there is going to be a fine line in between trust and not trusting it. So I think this is where we're going to head to. Human will stay in there. I don't think, in some cases, yes, humans are not needed. In some cases, yeah, there might be a lot of use cases where we don't need. But when it comes down to medical situations or some other legal action or stuff, where AI will be doing the whole legwork, but in the end, it cannot replace a human. I'm looking at the robots and all the videos and reels coming through, then that someday robot will take humans, and there was a reel, it was funny that it's trying to clean the house, and we are all saying when that day will come, because I'm tired of washing the dishes, right? But robot is falling that way, right? Right? The judgment of these machines and their ability to act like humans, how far it is from it. That is the operational side. But on the system side, where we are doing transactions and operations online, if it's all gonna be on generated and AI driven, how do we get? How long it's gonna take us? It's not gonna take us 20 years, like we did for internet to be here. It's gonna take us probably 5 to 10 years, but it's gonna be a lot of opportunities for us to learn and contribute. So, how many people are excited about GenAI? I don't see everybody there, right? Right?
And then how it's used.
Yeah, that is why, because that's why you didn't raise your hand, right? Because you have this question in your mind, and that's fair. If you ask me, I love AI, but on the other hand, I hate the social impact. I mean, look at today's generation. For me to stand up in front of you, be comfortable, starting a conversation with him, sitting behind, and talking to you, smiling, that's not what I see in today's generation. You are shy. You're all shy. You are living in a different times. We have lost a human connection because everything is online. We're making friends. How many of you feel comfortable picking up a phone and talking to a friend? You're gonna text. Only 2 people, right? You're gonna text, right? Your moms, aunts, you're gonna pick up the phone. You're gonna say, hey, what's going on, right? Human connection, right? So think about in the last 25 years, because of social media, we have a loss of connection. Think about privacy. We all feel comfortable creating our social. I have one, I have two, right? We all have that. We are comfortable doing social exposure, privacy. And then in some ways, that comes back to us. Think about comparisons. It's a natural thing that if you don't see, you don't see. But if you've seen something and you're like, oh, I don't have that, I wish I could. It's a natural thing comes to your head and you start thinking about updating yourself. Cyberbullying. How many kids went through cyberbullying and as a result of that, sad endings, tragedies. So, and just even like somebody like me when I'm bored, I start scrolling, watching funny reels. Okay, there's a good side. There's a good side of technology. But what we're talking about, the impact on the society. As the next generation engineers, we are not responsible just for building technologies, platforms, products, selling for billions of dollars. We need to also think about the impact on society. In a good way, whatever we have achieved and built, it's remarkable. Wherever we are from technology perspective, it's remarkable. But there is a downside. The society and the generations today and the generations in the next 20 years, what would be the impact socially? Right? Are we, and sometimes I question if everything is going to be done by AI, what am I going to be doing? Like going and sitting and doing paintings? What am I? Because that's the only thing left by hand, or maybe there will be a robot, right? I can't even write a book because with LLMs and all the narratives, it does better than humans. What are humans going to do? Go back in Greek times? What are we going to do? What will the society look like 20 years from now? It's a very important question to think about. When we are building, yes, we need to think about these things because I have seen this movie before. I watched this movie when internet was born. In the last 25 years, I have seen how society has changed. This is why somebody like me can stand up here and make that statement because I have watched that movie. I already see the good side of the technology and not so good side. How do you draw a line? It's very difficult, but we have to be mindful. Another question that comes very often, transformation of tech roles, a lot of layoffs happening. Students these days, they are worried, what's my future? And the fact is, there are not many jobs right now, and the jobs that are out there, they are asking, bring your GenAI experience. Hey, GenAI was just born, it's a baby, where do I get the experience, right? So the best thing is that your university is already giving you the right training and the right courses. So I think that's the best part that's happening to you, right? Because there was a time like a year ago, 2 years ago, if things were not there, things were not baked. So it was very difficult for those students because they didn't get what you're getting right now. So there is a bigger challenge out there for the students who were in the intersection of birth of GenAI and because of COVID, there are a lot of students who are still jobless. So how this is going to happen? The roles are going to be there. And actually, if you go and look up, there are a lot of postings for new jobs, but you will see they are more around agentic AI, they're around GenAI, new tools. So they are coming back. So there is no need to be discouraged, but you need to understand it's kind of changing. For what we used to call software engineer are not now going to be called AI systems engineers, and a different name, something similar in companies. It's more about it, and it's also changing your role because you're not going to be writing so much of the code. And on the code side, an interesting observation that, again, I'm kind of a bit irritated that when I learned this, that generation, if they have never studied about the object-oriented, and they do not know how the code should work, and they are using cursor or something to write the code. But when the code is written, and their manager asks, so what the code is doing, and they are unable to explain. So if this generation is writing the new systems, think about it. If you don't even understand the logic of what code and how, what AI produced, how are we going to be successful? It's still important to understand the fundamentals of how systems are built. Because we are still at the intersection, we are still writing the code, but we are having AI to write. So does that mean we need to still learn C++ and Java? Or some object-oriented? In my view, yes, because for the next 5 years, it's needed, because industry still needs to shift from the software stacks to GenAI stacks. So unless we know how the code was written or what AI is writing, how would we know we are doing the right thing? And I think that's a very critical thing people should acknowledge in the industry as well as anywhere. That knowledge is still valuable. So we need to continue with that until we really hit a point where entire industry is out of no code, no software, and that point is still far away. Software architects are going to be intelligence orchestrators. Instead of doing system designs, they will be designing AI systems. The managers, they're going to be more on the risk management side. Leaders, from strategy, execution, and governance side. It's a bigger role, right? So all of us, my role gonna change. Your role is already changing as software engineers. Your titles are gonna be looking different. In transition, it might be software / GenAI because we are transitioning, but then it will become GenAI or AI or MLOps or agentic AI engineers. So I think coming more towards the end of the discussion today, piece of advice, keep learning. It's not here to replace you. It can never be, it can be intelligent more than humans, less error because we are human, we make errors, mistakes, but it cannot we're more intelligent. That judgment that we at the present time, we will not make that as an AI can make. But in some cases, it's better than humans. Yeah, totally. More importantly, the ethical implications. What I talked about. How we are doing. Is it right? And like we said, was talking about you're gonna take it for the next 25 years. This generation is very important. In the end, I would say one thing. That one thing about revolutions and transformation is you rarely realize it when you're living through it until it becomes a history. You look back, and then you will realize what role you have played. And now this job belongs to